Hey, hope you are doing well. This is going to take a brief overview of the cardiophysiology, the electrical conduction system that we want to take a look at in the heart. So our first thing to bring up is going to be that we have to remember what the pacemaker sites are going to be. This is going to be one of our first pacemaker sites that we'll take a look at. This is the SA node. The SA node fires at an intrinsic rate of 60 to 100 times a minute. So because it fires at an intrinsic rate of 60 to 100 times a minute, that's why we usually call normal rhythms a normal sinus rhythm. It falls within 60 to 100. Anything that is less than 60 becomes bradycardia. Anything that is greater than 100 is considered to be tachy. Okay, so it's going to be tachycardia. One thing that is not in here is going to be our intranodal pathways, our intranodal pathways, right? So we know that there are other pathways that are appearing in here. So these here are going to be your internodal pathways or your intranodal pathways. So the pacemaker is now sending out an impulse. It sends it through the internodal pathway so it can fire off the left atrium as well as the right atrium. It is then held up right here at that AV node. So that AV node or that AV junction also serves as a backup pacemaker. And that AV node is going to fire at an intrinsic rate of 40 to 60 times a minute. Okay, so right off the bat, we see here we have a sinus that is at 60 to 100. Anything here is for the AV node is going to be between 40 and 60. The impulse then goes down through the bundle of His, and after it goes down through the bundle of His, it branches off into the left bundle and into the right bundle, where it now follows down through the septum, through these bundles, and it fires off the Purkinje network, right? So our Purkinje network is all through here. So our Purkinje network is going to fire at a rate that is typically 20 to 40. So usually it's about 20 to 40. Okay, so these numbers actually give us some things to take a look at. So as an example, if you're to look at ECG rhythms, we know that if it is that it has a P wave, if we see that it is a sinus rhythm, if it has a sinus rhythm and it's less than 60, then it becomes a sinus bradycardia, right? So sinus brady is less than 60. If it is a sinus tach, if it is greater than 100, then we say that this is a sinus tachycardia, right? So it becomes a sinus tachycardia. On the other hand, if we're down here with our AV node, if it is less than 40, okay, we know that it is then going to be an escape rhythm, right? So if we identify it later on, it would be an escape rhythm. So it would be a junctional escape because it's going to be somewhere in that junction. If it is greater than 60, then we call it accelerated junctional. Okay? So if it's in this case, let me put the junction here. Okay? So if it's less than 40, it becomes a junctional escape rhythm. If it's greater than 60, it becomes an accelerated junctional. If it falls between 40 and 60, then it's just a junctional rhythm. If it gets greater than 100, then it becomes a junctional tach. Okay? So this becomes a junctional tach once it gets above 100. The same thing holds true when you get to the ventricles, right? So when we get to the ventricles, if it is less than 20, it means that it is an idioventricular escape rhythm, right? Or it is going to be a ventricular escape rhythm, okay? So it's an escape if it's less than its normal rate. If it is above 40, then it is an accelerated idioventricular usually, right? Idioventricular. And then typically once we get over 100 to 150, this is when we start calling it a ventricular tachycardia, right? So it could be greater than 100 to be considered to be a tachycardia. So just gives you a couple things to consider, that there's more to it, and this is how we come up with names for a lot of these different rhythms. Anytime that you are monitoring somebody, you are taking a look at whether or not you're measuring time. So anything that goes across the horizontal axis is going to be time. Anything that goes on the vertical axis is going to be looking at energy. Well, we're looking really for, under ECG or EKG interpretation, we're looking primarily to identify what time is. We're looking at time, and we're looking to identify things that are normal. Okay? So that's really all we're doing when we're looking at this stuff. We want to know what the rhythm is. We want to identify the rhythm and identify the timing and whether or not things are normal or abnormal. Anytime there is an electrical impulse, I want you to picture the leads, right? The leads are going to be nothing more than a camera. Okay, so this camera that is sitting here is going to be taking a picture of an impulse. If the impulse is going towards the camera or towards that electrode and lead, right, it is heading in a positive manner. It's coming towards you, and you will see that it now has a positiveness to it, right? We're going to call this the isoelectric line. So anything above the isoelectric line is considered to be positive. Anything below the isoelectric line is considered to be negative. So if it's heading towards that impulse, if it's heading towards that electrode or that camera, it's positive. Things moving towards you usually are a positive thing, right? That person who you really like, they're walking up towards you, it's a positive thing. But when they leave, they're moving away from you. So this is you, right? They're moving away, and it is now a negative thing. So here's that isoelectric line, and because it fell below it, it now is a negative impulse, and this becomes positive, right? So we already know, here's your isoelectric line, and anything above it is positive, anything below it is negative. You can see that that QRS complex is actually going in a negative aspect in this manner. There are times that there is a impulse that goes half and half, halfway heading towards that positive electrode, and then it goes a different way. And here is another way you can look at that isoelectric line. Okay, so this is what people would refer to as isoelectric, right? So this is an isoelectric line. This is also isoelectric impulse. The things that can occur, or some problems that we may have when we are checking people or looking at their EKGs, we can have muscle tremors. They can start shivering. Patients are going to move. They can end up with a loose electrode, and those electrodes usually are going to be the stickers that you're putting on people. The leads are the wires. The electrodes are going to be the stickers that you put on somebody. The 60 hertz interference is something that you would most likely get from things such as lighting or computers. And of course, we can always run into a problem in which we have a machine malfunction. Those are all problems that we can run into. A single lead cannot identify whether or not there is an infarct. It cannot identify whether or not there's any type of chamber enlargement. It cannot tell us whether or not there's a problem with right and left conduction abnormalities. And the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is right here. It cannot tell us whether or not the pumping action of the heart is actually good. To do this, you have to do one thing. You have to do a pulse check, right? That's the only way that you can tell that that occurs. All of these other things here, these require 12 leads. Okay, so they require 12 lead EKGs, and those are things that we're not going to address here. So the routine monitoring, though, the only thing, as I said earlier, we're checking rate and regularity, and we're looking at time of the impulse. So a couple things to remember is that as you have the EKG paper going over the stylus, it is moving here at 25 millimeters a second. So that means that in 1 minute, okay, in 1 minute, we have 1,500 small blocks, these little small blocks here that are going across the paper. So that's what happens. In 1 minute, it takes 1,500 small blocks to go across. Anything that is going across this horizontal line is going to be time. Anything that goes across the vertical thing is going to then be seen as voltage. Okay? We're primarily dealing with time, and that's where our focus is going to be for most of ECG interpretation. So when we take a look at times, we're taking a look at finding out a couple different things, such as the PR interval. Our PR interval is measuring where the P wave starts, where that SA node has fired, and we're measuring to see how long it takes for it to be held up at the junction, and that is telling us whether or not things are running normal or not. So when we do that, we're measuring from the beginning of the P wave, so we're going from the beginning of this P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. And again, one of the problems that we run into here is that you have to interpret where you believe that it is. So there could be some variability. But we like to look at this as being a 0.12 to 0.20, right? That's what we're looking at. It's 0.12 to 0.20 for that to be something that is considered to be normal. If we were to look at the QRS durations that are here, we go from the beginning of the beginning of the QRS to where the S wave ends. So where things come back, right? So we're looking at this whole area right here. So essentially where you built off of it, where you did your PR interval, this area now is going to be the beginning of it to your S wave, right? So our PR interval. We're going to count the number of blocks that are in here, and this is where we're looking at things to be 0.08 to 0.12. In some cases, you could see it at being 0.06. Now, we're going to take a look at how we get these measurements here in a minute. The ST segment, you get a lot of people that will want to tell you, you need to measure the ST segment. You measure the ST segment primarily through 12-lead EKG interpretation. So this is the ST segment, and the ST segment, for it to be elevated, needs to be, the S and the T wave need to be above here, and this would tell us that we have ST elevation. If it is below, then it would be ST depression. And what we look for in here is actually called, in this area, would be called the J point. Okay, again, just giving you a little hint for precursors for 12-lead EKG interpretation. And then finally, our last thing that we take a look at and we would like to deal with is going to be what our QT interval is. Not that it's cute, but we're going from our QT. Okay, so we know that our QRS duration starts here, and we start taking a look at, here is our Q, right? And then we bring it all the way over here to where that T wave ends. So here's our QT interval. So this QT interval is what we start to take a look at, and this should fall between 0.33 and 0.42. Easy way to look at your QT interval, it is rate variable. So therefore, your rate variability for your QT interval is going to be, if it's less than half of your R to R interval, it's considered to be abnormally slow. Okay, so what do all these things mean? Well, we're going to come back up here and let's take a look at these blocks, right? So we're going to take a block here. You can notice that this here is a bigger block, right? So this is a bigger block. And when I take a look at this bigger block, this is 5 by 5, which means that I have 5 going down this way and I have 5 going across, right? So it's 5 by 5. Each small block, when I look at one little small block here, is the equivalent of 0.04 seconds of time. Okay, so it's 0.04 seconds of time. When I take 5 times that, so 5 times 0.04, this now gives me 0.20 seconds of time. So one big block, or one 5 by 5, is equal to 0.20 seconds of time, whereas one small block is worth 0.04 seconds of time. Okay, so that's how we start to determine these. We are now measuring the PR interval. Again, we said from the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. We count the number of blocks that are here. So just in this one here, we're saying there's 1, 2, 3. And add those two together, that would be a total of 4. So if I have 4 times the 0.04, that is going to give me a 0.16, right? So 4 times 4 is 16, was the easy way to look at it, and just drop in the decimal. Same thing happens here with the QRS duration. So if I'm measuring my QRS duration, and we'll say that there's 2 blocks here, so 2 times 0.04, 2 times 4 is 8, add in the decimal, and it becomes 0.08, right? So that's how we start to determine what our normal time frames are going to be. So one thing that I can point out, and I get this an awful lot, and it's not a reason, I put this up here for one reason with Tom Cruise, okay? Because I found this online, and basically it says that if you look at his tooth, there is one that is right down the exact center of his mouth. So no matter how many times you see Tom Cruise, whether it's on the internet or on an interview, on a talk show, you most likely, or even in a movie, you most likely are now going to take a look at his mouth to see whether or not it's directly midline. And if that's the case, you're trying to compare everything to that. You try to now compare whether or not you see Tom Cruise, oh, is that him? And you associate that now with that being in the exact center of your mouth, or his teeth in the exact center of your mouth. That's not a good way to look at EKG interpretation. There's a lot of times people will say, hey, I want to see that, and I'm going to compare a sinus rhythm from one side to a sinus rhythm on another side. I want to compare pictures. Not a very good way of doing that, and actually you will find that you will be wrong a good majority of the time. So what you need to do in ECG interpretation is utilize a resource like this, which is available in the notes that are below here in the video, that you can utilize this as a way in which you can ask the questions. You want to know about P waves, and you want to know whether or not there is a P wave for whether or not it's normal. You want to know whether or not there's a P wave for every QRS and a QRS for every P wave. What's the PR interval? You want to know what the QRS duration is. What is the atrial rate? What is the ventricular rate? Are things regular or not? And then, of course, in this section, I have some comments that are put in here and gives you reminders down at the bottom as to whether or not there's any or things that you can use to measure. So this is looking at all the rhythms that really we look at in a book. This was pulled from multiple sources. I'm making it available to you. And as if I feel, we feel, there's a group of us that put this together, that we need to update it, then we're definitely going to make sure that it gets updated. And we keep that, try to keep it in either a Google Doc or print it out as a PDF. Multiple ways that you can take a look at it. And it'll make life a whole heck of a lot easier for you. So hopefully this was a good review or a good overview of what it is looking like to address the ECG reading and looking at the physiology of the electrical conduction system of the heart.